Namaskar and welcome to India Narrative. In many countries, one can observe rise in religious fundamentalism, and sometimes it can be connected to terror groups as well. Bangladesh is one of the closest neighbors of India. What is the situation in Bangladesh when it comes to maintaining secularism? To help us understand this topic, in open court today, we are joined by Shantanu Mukharji, a retired IPS officer, former National Security Advisor to the Republic of Mauritius, and an expert on Bangladesh matters. Shantanuji, namaskar.
Namaskar.
So my first question to you, sir, is it is the People's Republic of Bangladesh, a country of nearly 18 crore people, where majority practice Islam. But would you say ever since Bangladesh was carved out from erstwhile East Pakistan in 1971, have they embraced secular principles?
Well, thank you for having me. But I'll be very clear. It has not always been the secular trend which prevailed in Bangladesh. As you know, soon after independence, when it was secular, because Sheikh Mujib came to power in 72, till 75, they maintained everybody was equal. But in 75, Sheikh Mujib and family members were assassinated. Then the government which came to power, then that deviated from secular credentials and they practiced Islam. And then the successive governments, other than Sheikh Hasina or the Awami League, which came to power, say for example General Hussain Muhammad Ershad, under whatever pressure, the majority pressure or pressure from the Middle Eastern countries, they made a sharp departure from the secular bona fides of the country. So it wasn't practiced. But yes, we see from 1996 to 2001, when Sheikh Hasina came to power for the first time, and then again from 2009 till date, we find secularism thriving under Sheikh Hasina.
So you're saying whether it was Bangabandhu, the founder of Awami Party, or his daughter, Sheikh Hasina, who's the current Prime Minister of Bangladesh, they have done their best to uphold the secular credentials. But when the other parties perhaps have been in the government, there have been fringe elements that have created some hostilities.
No, they're not fringe elements. It was a regular government in power, which promoted fundamentalism. Like, for example, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, initially headed by Ziaur Rahman, who was a former general, and his wife later, that is Khalida Zia. They partnered with Jamaat-e-Islami. And Jamaat-e-Islami was a collaborator, a principal collaborator with the Pakistani forces in killing the Mukti Bahini or all those who were fighting for the liberation struggle.
So Jamaat-e-Islami would be a terror group then?
It wasn't declared a terror group, but they believed in that kind of terror. It stands defranchised today. It cannot contest in the elections. But having been in a power, so they lent state support. They patronized the extremists, the religious extremists and the radicals of a particular faith there, which got root. And that led to terror. That led to terrorism. Their reactions, say, in Taliban or the world over, where Islam was calling for extremist actions, they supported. So the fundamentalism there, which was patronized by them, led to a pattern of terror engulfing Bangladesh.
So Shantuji, please do enlighten us. In your opinion, in the recent past, do you see a trend, if any, of rise in religious fundamentalism and terror groups in Bangladesh?
Amit, this is a very relevant question on the topic we are discussing now. Yes, we do. And it is not only confined to Bangladesh, it's a global phenomenon. It's a development which is affecting many countries. The religion is overtaking the political statecraft and everything. And Bangladesh is no exception to that. So despite the present government under Hasina or Awami League government, best of efforts, we find there is a rise in religious fundamentalism there. And particularly, I would like to, Amit, mention about after the arrivals of the Rohingyas from across the border, from Burma. They amount to about 12 lakh today.
Okay.
Absolutely, they're of Burmese stock, and they are there and highly radicalized. Okay. And the forces who are not favorably disposed toward Bangladesh have been radicalizing. So we see a definite trend. But having said this, Amit, the good point is that there are efforts, concerted efforts, sincere efforts on part of the government to contain it.
Okay.
But the trend continues, and the government is watchful perhaps about it, and it's fairly under control as we speak, but more needs to be done.
Could you cite few instances in the recent years where there were instances of radicalization, religious fundamentalism?
Yes, definitely. We saw that the rise, the spike in fundamentalism connected to terror. Say, for example, when Sheikh Hasina's government had completed nearly 7 years in power, in 2016, we saw a major terror attack in a bakery in Dhaka. That was 1st July 2016.
Yes.
So why did it happen? The investigating agencies, Amit, when they probed into it, they found that they represented an upper echelons of the society, their boys and girls, but they were radicalized, the fundamentalism. And then they got into action in terror acts. After that, we found in some other places the terror acts. Not only, it does not end here. That was 7 years. Now, this year,
okay,
say 25th of March, last year, 2021,
okay,
after our Prime Minister's visit when he left, there are certain fundamentalist units who were not known to be striking terror at the heart of places. They led to a trail of destruction in Brahmanbaria, in Kumilla, in Sylhet, in Dhaka. They were huge acts of vandalism and violence based on religious extremism.
And do we know the name of the group? Because sometimes we hear names like Hifazat.
Definitely. I have no hesitation in naming. That is Hifazat-e-Islam, which is based in Chittagong. It is barely 12 years old, this outfit. And it is suspected it has got sizable support from certain quarters. And it led to this thing. And this is against tolerance of any other religion. They are against a particular culture. They are against doing this. They want only their religion to dominate. They did not allow this statue in the presence in the compound of the Supreme Court. They are destroying the images, the idols, because they say their religion does not permit that. So there is definitely their presence, but under check.
So of the 18 crore population that we have in Bangladesh, we can say about 95% plus would practice Islam. And then what constitutes minorities there?
Well, among the minorities, the maximum is the Hindu minority, who have been living there for ages. And their population would be, say, 1 crore plus. Okay. They are there. And other than that, there are Buddhists, there are Christians, in that order. The Buddhists are mainly in the Chittagong hill tracts in Chittagong. They practice their religion. And then the Christians who are in minority. They have been living there. But Hindus is a very major chunk among the minorities. Very recently, we found Durga Puja concluded there. And you will not believe they had 34,000 plus Durga Mandaps celebrated, barely 10 days back.
So whether it was 1947, when India got its independence, or 1971, when Bangladesh was established, was there a pattern of migration of these minorities from, say, Bangladesh to other areas?
Yes, there has been a trend which began. Say, for example, in 47, we all know many refugees, migrants, they came here out of fear of life and property. And then we found another. An Indo-Pak war took place in 1965. And before that, in 64, Pakistan, when it was East Pakistan, they declared an Enemy Property Act or the Vested Property Act, and this thing, they started. So we saw a trend of migrants. Then whenever there had been excesses, there is a tendency, and very naturally so, for sense of security. They come and find refuge. And the nearest neighbor is India, where they find their culture, their social customs much akin, much more familiar. So this is their choice when they come.
And both the countries, India and Bangladesh, they have historic relationship and cultural relationship because Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore has written the national anthem Jan Gan Man for India and has written the national anthem for Bangladesh too.
So what is exactly
So
that you want to know?
both the countries do have this common soft power.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that this cultural bonding, which is by Tagore, I mean, to put it in perspective, so Tagore had a huge landed property in Kushtia district bordering India,
Okay.
where his jamindari was there. He was sent there by his father because he was a very good administrator. So those buildings where he lived till 1905, there he composed one of his best creations, the songs, poetry, short stories. So they're still there.
Yes.
And Tagore's songs are very popular in Bangladesh. Many Bangladeshi students still go to Shantiniketan to study. So Tagore remains a source of inspiration to the Bangladeshi youth and elderly alike. So it is there. So this is a good cultural affinity existing between the two countries.
So when you have hostile forces doing something wrong in Bangladesh, how does it impact India? And how do you see India's role in aligning with the Bangladesh government to counter these inimical forces?
Well, there are two aspects to it, to your question, Amit. One is strengthening of the cultural bondings between the two countries, whatever is in common. Say Rabindra Sangeet, say the drama, theatre, celebration of Poila Boishakh, and all these things which are common between them. This is one on the what you described as the softer side, the cultural side, the historical side. The number two is the connectivity. Say, for example, we see a lot of new road links, the Maitri Express, the train going. They talk about the corridor creating and all these things, which is connected to the business and commercial also, which we are very optimistic. A lot of things are happening. And the next is, from my point of view, is the security matters, where, to answer your question, that both the countries must be having a very robust mechanism of cooperation, say on intelligence, say on security, exchange of hard intelligence, actionable intelligence, information, ideas, because there are many common things. Remember, we have the largest border running into thousands of kilometers between India and Bangladesh. So anything happening there, to answer, it does have an impact. So the security establishments of both the countries also need to be really warming up to each other and further reinforce their arrangements.
So meeting of minds, not just at the political level, you're saying be it at the academic level, be it at the literature, is necessary from both sides because a strong region benefits both the nations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Both sides have forward-thinking people who are opposed to violence, who are opposed to, they want to maintain they want to share the same culture and all. Those forces, in my view, must be encouraged on both sides so that there is a good bonding between them to listen, and that will help in countering the rise of fundamentalism and any anti-faith action which may be seen detrimental to our common interests. That bonding must be encouraged officially as well as on a personal. Say, for example, the exchange of ideas between academics, between historians, between scholars of both the countries. And remember, a large number of people speak the language, and Bangladesh came into being on the basis of its very strong language. They rejected the theory of religion.
Yes.
So that should be encouraged.
And how do you see the prime ministers of both sides? Sheikh Hasina is considered to be a friend of India. And how do you see the dialogue between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and her over the last few years?
Well, as a watcher of happenings in Bangladesh, or say, having worked there for over 4 years, I can say with certain amount of conviction and confidence that the relationship is perhaps at its best now, at its prime now. Very recently, barely a month ago, Sheikh Hasina visited India and signed many agreements and met her counterpart, Prime Minister Modi. So they have a wonderful bonhomie between them, a wonderful relationship between them on a one-to-one level and also at the country level. So I find that it is on a very excellent note.
Shantanuji, you've served in Bangladesh for many years, and then you've also handled Bangladesh in various capacities with the Government of India. One of the photographs that really defines the establishment of Bangladesh is where we've got the military people of both sides, and we see General Jagjit Singh Arora there. And you had an interesting interpretation of that photograph.
We can see General Jagjit Singh Arora, who was then General Officer commanding the Eastern Command, that is in Fort William. He's getting the instrument of surrender signed by General A.A.K. Niazi. And at the back, at the rear, we find Major General Jacob, who is a very distinguished general of the Indian Army. Next to him is General Sagat Singh. He was a great soldier, a wonderful person. And then we find from the Air Force, Diwan, and then we find Admiral Krishnan from the Indian Navy. So the interpretation is that at 71 itself, you find a Sikh
Yes.
who is getting the surrender from the Pakistan Army, and 90,000 plus. It's a historic movement for India. And then there is a Jew general, he's a Jew. And then there is a Rajput. And there is Diwan, perhaps a Punjabi, then Christian from South India. So it itself speaks about huge secular credentials or the progressive mindset that India represented and still continues to represent.
And you're hopeful that going forward, the relationship between the two countries will only touch greater heights, and we will be able to counter any untoward incident.
Yeah, I'm hopeful because I'm always optimist. Then that is how we find. But only thing is that we want that Sheikh Hasina continues with the same policies and our government adheres to them so that the fundamentalists and the terrorists are at check. Because Bangladesh did have, or it still carries a bloody history, and nobody would like it to be repeated. For that, maximum alertness is required. I will not heave a sigh of relief or said that it is all hunky-dory. We should not lower our guards at any cost. Maximum vigil has to be maintained every time. We should not be complacent that, yes, all is well, now we can sleep. Certainly not. That is my view.
Right. Well, they say humanity has the power to be its own savior. But as Shantanuji says, that we have to be constantly on vigil to ensure that any fundamentalist or terror groups is in check. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us in the open court today and helping us understand the situation in Bangladesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Namaskar.